Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter. And in here, it's mainly dealing with faith, right? It says the triumph of faith and showing how faith has always really been the means of righteousness. So as Paul gives these examples, is to also exhort the believers to also be a good example of faith in our time. So it says here, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Right? Let's go into that word substance, because the faith is it's a very interesting thing, right? Because it's very strong, it's very powerful, but yet you cannot see it. So let's go into the word substance. Or maybe let's not go into the word substance. There you go. So it says, a setting or place under that which has foundation, is firm, substance, real being, right? Substantial quality, confidence, firm trust, steadiness of mind. So if we substitute some of those synonyms in here, right? Faith is the confidence of the things we hope for, right? The firm belief in the things that we hope for. And it's also the evidence of the things we haven't seen. A lot of people believe things if they have evidence. Show me the evidence, show me the proof. Matter of fact, that's what court is all about. So if you can prove the unseen things, one will believe it. And the Lord has proven the things that are not seen to us through faith. Faith is the evidence that we have to say, okay, I believe this is true, without you showing me a video clip of creation, but I believe that's how it happened. Without you showing me a video clip of the kingdom, but I believe that that's coming. For by it the elders obtained a good report, right? By having faith. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God. All right, let's go into that. Let's see actually how this is worded here. Yeah, same thing. Earned a good reputation. So it says, through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Yeah, because none of us were there at the time of creation, but we believe that's how it went down, how it was put together through faith in the Lord, right? That the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. So the physical world that we see was made from things that we don't see, right? From the spiritual, from the base elements, and you can't see these with the naked eye. But we believe all of these things. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. By faith, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous. See, because his faith in the Lord led him to give the best of his offering to the Lord, right? And here Paul is showing action driven by faith. The action you take shows forth that faith. God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. Right? Let's read this in another translation, but basically it's still an example. So it says here, it was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. Although Abel was long dead, he still speaks to us by his example of faith. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found. Yeah, so Enoch, when you go into Genesis, his physical body wasn't found because he was translated, he was changed into the kingdom. I mean, into the spirit world. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased God. And what is that testimony that he had? The same one that we have now, that he was pleasing to God, and the things we're doing, well, as Paul is saying, are also things that are pleasing to the Lord. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. If you come to the Most High, but you don't believe that he has the power to do the things that he says he'll do, then you're not going to be able to please him. Imagine going to a mechanic and not believing the mechanic can actually fix your car. Meanwhile, they're telling you, yeah, I do this all the time. And you stand in there for the past 10 minutes, all they've been hearing is, so are you sure? Like, are you sure you know what you're doing? Wait, no, I'm sorry. I don't think that you should be doing that over there. You actually have to raise the car up. Is that all really necessary? I don't know. Are you sure you know what you're doing, nigga? Do you not listen? Take the back the car up. Back the car up. Get it out of here. That's what's gonna happen. You're gonna piss off the mechanic. So when you come to the Lord, yeah, you can't come to the Lord. I'm coming to you, Lord, for you to do something for me, but I don't believe you can do it. You can't please the Lord that way, right? You must believe that He is, He is who He is, and as it says, He's a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. Because if you believe that, you will what? You will diligently seek the Lord. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet. So Noah was warned of the things that hadn't happened, right? The flood that was going to come. Moved with fear. You don't, if you don't believe something, you won't fear it. You know why these people don't fear the Lord? They don't fear the judgments to come? Because they don't believe it, right? But the fact that Noah was moved with fear means that he believed the things he was warned of God. Prepared an ark to the saving of the soul. You think that was an easy task to do? No, it wasn't an easy task to do. But Noah did it, right? He prepared that ark because he believed. And that was to what? The salvation of him and his house. So it says here, to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. So let's look at that in the NLT. It says here, it was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about things that had never happened before. By his faith, Noah condemned the rest of the world, and he received the righteousness that cometh by faith. Verse 8. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whither he went. Right. So when the Lord said, you got to leave Ur of the Chaldees, he left because he had faith. He didn't. If the Lord said it, I'm doing it. Jump. How high? By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, that is the land of Canaan, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. Right, because it was through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So they were the heirs of the promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. That's the eternal rest. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed. So Sarah believed. Yeah, she laughed when the angel said it, but guess what? She believed that she would have that child. So through faith, she received that and was delivered of a when she was past age. See, because you get to the point where you're not getting, them eggs ain't dropping, right? When you go into the details, like a woman, when she reaches a certain stage, it's naturally, they say like that's it, you can't have kids after a certain age. So as it says, she was past that age of having kids because she judged him faithful who had promised. Verse 12, therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead. This is talking about Abraham. When it says as good as dead, it doesn't mean that like he was very old. He was basically impotent, right? But of him, as it says, sprang there. Salakia, a little distracted out here. Anyway, it says, where we at? Yo, back up. Doing too much. Verse 12. Therefore sprang there even of one, oh Lord have mercy, sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude. That is, Abraham was made a father of many nations, right? A multitude came from him, and as the sand which is by the sea shore innumerable. So let's go into that word. Let's look at that in the NLT. It says, so a whole nation came from this one man who was as good as dead, a nation with so many people that like the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore, there's no way to count them. And that happened through faith. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. See, so they believed it. How did they see it? Through faith. When the Lord told it to them, they could actually see it. They could see it coming to pass. So they saw it afar off and were persuaded of them. They believed in the promises that was told, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims in the earth. So having heard the promise, right, of that rest, of that 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 the Lord will give them, they confessed, they acknowledged that they were pilgrims. Where is it at? They were strangers and pilgrims on the earth, right? Meaning that the habitations that we had weren't our permanent home. Says here, all these people died still believing what God had promised them. They did not receive that promise, but they saw it all from a distance and welcomed it. They agreed that they were foreigners and nomads here on earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. Right? If you say you're a pilgrim or a stranger, then you're saying that you don't have, your own country, your own place. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. It says, if they had longed for the country they came from, they could have gone back. But now they desire a better country, that is unheavenly, Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. So, in other words, they were willing to forsake the things that they had in the present, and to accept that they didn't have any. They didn't have, they were sojourners, they were pilgrims, and they didn't have that eternal rest. And they were willing to sacrifice what the Lord asked them to sacrifice, or to believe in the Lord that he would be able to give us that city, that rest. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son. And so what it means by faith is that Abraham believed. He didn't tell the Lord, right, when the Lord said, all right, go and offer up Isaac. He didn't say, oh Lord, no, I already believe, but you can do what you said you're going to do, so it's okay. We don't got to do that. How did he show that faith? He showed that faith by the Lord had to stop him, because that knife was coming down quick. Like, whoa, Abraham, hold on now, hold on, whoa, easy, calm down. You're good. Take the ram. It's okay. It says, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So you got to imagine that, right? That means that Abraham, at that point, looking down at his son on the altar with the knife in his hand, when he lifted up his hand, he had no intention of stopping. Imagine how much faith it actually takes. He looking at his son, he had the actual full intention that I'm going to take him out, because that's what the Lord is asking. So if the Lord hadn't stopped Abraham, Isaac would have been cooked. That's the faith that Abraham had. And he believed that the Lord could raise him up again. So he said, it's fine. Hey, he gave me him in my old age. So he can give me him again. It says here, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called, right? So that's why it likened him to his only begotten, because Abraham had, other children, but Isaac was the one the Lord recognized as his seed. Accounting that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. See, so Abraham believed that even if Isaac had, he had sacrificed Isaac, the Lord could raise him up from the dead. NLT, Abraham reasoned that if Isaac died, God was able to bring him back to life again. And in a sense, Abraham did receive his son back from the dead. And that was also symbolic of the Father, the Most High, and Yahweh Shai. But except this time, when Yahweh Shai came, he actually did die. So it really was like a foreshadowing too. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Right, because let me actually pull this up in the NLT. I think I like the way they word that here. Yeah, it was by faith that Isaac promised blessings for the future to his sons Jacob and Esau. See, because he believed that the words he spoke would actually come to pass, those blessings. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff, right? Because when you read the account in Genesis, it says he bowed himself. And like similar to what is said in verse 20, right? He had faith that the blessing he was giving would actually come to pass. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones, right? He had faith that the Lord, as Jacob told him, would deliver them from Egypt. And so he told him, look, when you leave, because I believe you will, take my bones and bury me in the land of my fathers. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child. And they were not afraid of the king's commandment. Why? Because they had faith in the Lord that he could preserve Moses. By faith, Moses, when he was come of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So he refused to accept his glory as an Egyptian, because he was an Israelite, but rather choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Because he could have enjoyed the role of authority and power, as a prince, likely heir to the throne, but he chose rather to rebel against that and to suffer with his people, as it says, than to enjoy those pleasures for a season. That's why he slew that Egyptian to deliver his people. But guess what? Eventually he had to flee. But what ended up happening? He fled and the Lord called him back. Esteeming the reproach of Hamashiach greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. So he was willing to, suffer reproach and the things that he would go through in order to do those duties that the Lord asked him to. And he was willing to accept that as greater than the riches of Egypt, because that would have been a comfortable lifestyle. Egypt was one of the top empires at the time, and you're the prince of Egypt. My God. NLT, he thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Hamashiach than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. So remember, it says these all seeing the promise ahead. So as the Lord could have showed him, remember, the Lord showed him a lot, things of the end, right? Things at the beginning. So he chose, you know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna sacrifice the eternal recompense for some temporary pleasures here, living like an Egyptian. Hell no. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. See? So he endured knowing that because the Lord revealed himself to him, and to serve the Lord, Moses had to endure many things. And he was willing to incur the wrath of the king for that. He did, and that's why he had to run away. It was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who is invisible. Through faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. and that was Yahushua. And so they did everything that Moses commanded them because they had faith. They believed that would truly be the case. And in doing so, they were preserved from the destroyer. By faith, they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians essaying to do were drowned. Right? Because when the Lord told Moses, "Why are you crying unto me? Point over to the water and let it part." He said, "What now?" Lord, what you saying right now? But hey, the Lord did it. And the Egyptians were like, "All right, we're gonna follow right through," and that didn't end up too well for them. The Lord said, "You ain't following shit." That's when the waters came down on them. Then they didn't know, should we bust a U-turn? Should we go forward? Should we dive into the water? Like it says here, by faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. All these things they were made possible by faith, by Israel actually believing that the Lord would be true to the things that he said. And he did it. By faith the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, which is her household, when she had received the spies with peace, because she had faith that the God of Israel was truly with them. And so she took action to show that faith by hiding them and risking, getting in trouble by hiding actual spies of the enemies and lying to the king's authorities. But she had faith, and guess what? In her faith, in believing that, she and her house were preserved. Does not make Rahab an Israelite. And what shall I say more? For the time the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak and of Samson and of Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets. He's saying I could go on and on and on and on and on and on to show you these examples of faith, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions. David did that. Right? It says, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant, which is to be, strong, in fight, turned to flight the enemies of aliens, that was the heathen armies. And these are describing different accounts, biblical accounts that men of old did through faith in the Lord. Women received their dead raised to life again, right? That is an example. I believe Elijah did that. And others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And these all, because Paul's given a historical account here, these all did that in faith. One example was the 7 brothers in the Maccabees and their mother. They were tortured, right? But they didn't eat the pork to accept that deliverance from the torture, that they would obtain, as it says, a better resurrection. And so, meaning at the time when they would be raised up, it would be onto salvation. It would be to a reward for having been faithful when they died. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. See, some were mocked, some were scourged, some were put in prison. They were stoned. They were sawn asunder. Mike, imagine that. By having faith in the Lord to serve the Lord, you suffer these things. And a lot of the prophets also suffer these things. Imagine being cut in half. And I think this precept here, I'm trying to see if I can remember here, but I think it was, I forgot who it was that they said suffered. It was one of the prophets they said was let me see, let's look it up here. Is Hebrews and what's that, 37? Forgot who. Oh, is it Isaiah? Yeah, I think it was Isaiah that I had seen this before. But it says here, Hebrews 11:37, which mentions martyrs sawn in two, is widely understood to refer to the Jewish tradition that the prophet Isaiah was executed in this manner by King Manasseh, While not explicitly stated in the Old Testament, this account of Isaiah's martyrdom appears in early non-canonical texts like the Ascension of Isaiah. Okay, so I remember, I forgot what I was reading, but I'd come across that made me think about that. But all in all, it doesn't explicitly say it in the scriptures, but Paul is stating it here that, believers, those that have faith in the Lord, they suffer these things, right? They were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented. Okay, that's sackcloth. Goatskin, sackcloth was also often made of goatskin or goat's hair, um, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. That is basically seeking refuge, right, or being persecuted. That's what it signifies. Verse 39, and these all, having obtained a good report, going up to the second verse, by which the elders obtained a good report, through faith, received not the promise. So they didn't get that promise of eternal rest in their time, but they received a good report through faith, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. Let's read that in the NLT. It says here, for God had something better in mind for us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. See? So that's why they weren't able to get that to receive the promise, because the Lord, as Paul is saying here, the Lord had something better in mind for us. It was a certain time in which this would all come, right? And that's when Yahushua comes back with that reward, or with that rest. And that brings us to the end of the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachah Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.